morning, good morning, good morning. What's up, everybody? We're on another episode from the gutter to greatness. And as always, bringing you greatness, bringing your brother from humble beginnings. But he's not as humble as he is. He's doing some great, amazing things. We got, we're gonna we're gonna talk to the candy man who can. And he's gonna tell us what that's all about, what that means, and how and why. I got a good guy here. He's on the other side of 1911, y'all. So don't hold it against him. Uh, but we're gonna rock with him today. We got Don Terry Jr. today. Don's so debonair. He's gonna tell us why he's so debonair and what that means and all that good stuff today. So my guy here, Don Terry. So we always start with this. Tell us, what do you do currently, and why should anybody care? Like, why the hell does anybody care what you do now?
Man, one, thank you for this opportunity. Man, I am Don Terry Jr. I'm from Baltimore, Maryland. I'm a native. I'm a product of Baltimore City Public Schools. I went to Johnson Wales University, went to Morgan State University. I am a member of the greatest fraternity, as we both know, 1911, Psi Fraternity Incorporated. Debonair in every sense of the word, man. That's just my mindset. Like when I walk into the room, I just feel like I'm just the coolest person in the room. You feel what I'm saying? But me, I mean, authentically, I just have this mindset of a millionaire mindset, one day at a time. You know what I mean? Becoming a change agent in my community, becoming a change agent in the education system. So that's just me in a nutshell.
What is it that you do currently, Don? And
So right now, currently, I'm working in the K-12 system for the school system here in Baltimore. Very rewarding. I get to travel, get to meet teachers and school leaders on a regular basis, and connecting them. And it's just that point of just being a change agent and being able to make a decision on who best fits our classroom. Because as we know, and social media and just stories a day, we need that. We need those folks that are passionate in our classrooms, those folks that are going to bring differences to our kids' lives. So when people ask who I am and you ask why should they care, I think that's a large part of it. You know what I mean? I love kids. I love, being able to make a decision on like some things that impacts their lives, man.
so, what's your actual title there?
I'm a HR officer here in Baltimore.
Okay. So, just getting to that ranks, and especially as a black man, the systems aren't always set up to welcome us in, and especially putting you in on the hiring decisions. So I know that creates a lot of responsibility on your end to hire ethically and morally, and try to embrace bringing other people in who look like you. What's your commitment to that? What's your and what has that journey looked like for you? Because I'm sure not everybody who's around you is always on the same page.
Man, I feel like in a system that is like not naturally set up for us black men, I feel like in a space such as education, we got to create opportunities and we got to create doors for our people of color, specifically black men. Statistics show, and being in that space, I feel like it's funny because being in this seat is it's almost like man, it's almost like I have to um, think about different things every single day to like create differences. And I'm sorry, I'm losing my train of thought here for a second, but just creating those opportunities that's gonna better our young black youth, man. And if you can go back on that question again, my
Yeah.
apologies.
So what I was asking you is because I know in different systems, and even
Mhm.
specifically in education, there's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of walls that get put up. I know that, and just factual information, and this isn't like shooting at anybody, but I know Baltimore public schools have had their challenges, as
Mhm.
where like Rochester schools have had their challenges, and I know that a lot of the population that gets educated in Baltimore and Baltimore City is quite often low income, uh, black and brown youth. And you know, as the HR person, you have a huge responsibility to put people that look like our kids in front of them, and I know that you're committed to that, right? So just by the
Mhm.
person that I've met and that I've gotten to know, I know that you're committed to that. But I know that there's got to be obstacles in the way. I know that there's things that sometimes challenges you got to face. And really what I was asking is, how do you navigate that? How do you navigate challenges? Because those challenges uh, are I think larger than I think a lot of people understand or realize if they're on the outside looking in. And this is no knock on Baltimore. I would say this is in probably almost every urban district in America and in charter schools too. So it's not this is not monolithic. This is something that
Mhm.
happens everywhere. And so what part are you playing in it? How are you navigating it?
The way I best navigate it, man, is like, to be honestly, I keep this a positive mindset. I continue to, like, create connections and build bridges and meet people and like really embrace different habits as far as like being consistent in my messaging and like really pushing people to, really focus on diversifying our workforce, really pushing people to, perform at their best, specifically with people of color, because I feel like we don't have a lot of opportunities um, in education, specifically Black males, because we're such a low percentage to, professionally develop. In a lot of school systems and what they want to consider urban, like there's a lack of funding. I feel like there is, like, some inequities in that. And then when it comes to the funding portion, um, it seems as though school districts receive a lot of money, but then, as you know, there is this per pupil per student, right? And you get allocated a certain amount of money, and then you try and, finagle as best as possible. I had experiences of working in Baltimore City Public Schools. Baltimore City Public Schools is an amazing school district, man. Like, you have some of the hardest working people in the school district, but it's just that your external factors, meaning the political factors, the funding, in most instances, the families, and just the investment in just the kids, period, creates those barriers. And again, I'm gonna say, going back to like those habits, it's about, really investing in people and families to like kind of get them focused on the education of like our kids, man. And I hope I'm like, clearing up and answering your question.
Yeah,
But
yeah. You know, and what I found is just based off what I hear you saying, is a lot of school districts, even though the per pupil allocation it struggles, and in every district, every charter school really struggles with the amount of money that's allocated, and there definitely should be more money overall allocated to education, and it should be more of a priority, especially in the crisis that we're in this country of with the lack uh, of of people being able to read and write at a high level. I think the average education or reading level in the United States is like, especially I think for Black and Brown folks, is like fifth grade. Like so when I say that, that's you know that really bothers me. And yes, there should be more money, but truth of it is many of the districts don't handle or accurately place their funds where they need to go. And I say that this isn't a like a Baltimore issue. This is
yeah,
a holistic issue, right? So I'm not again not pointing any fingers, but what I am saying is that what I found is that the money, if you want to see where somebody's priorities are, see how they spend their money, right? So you follow the money, you see how they spend it, and you usually get to see what their values are and where their priorities are. And I found that many districts, many charter schools don't always allocate their funding in ways that are specifically servicing Black and brown kids, or specifically doing things designed to make sure that our kids are successful even with the limited funds that they have. So I guess the antithesis argument is, if you get more money and you don't spend it right, does it matter? You know, and that's always an argument that I face, but or that I put out there to have this dialogue with my fellow educators. But I think as long as, you know, we can control what we can control, and so you, as a brother who has the opportunity to bring talent into the district, you know, you have the opportunity to control some of the narrative there. And I think that's what
Mhm.
people need to understand, that we got a very conscious brother who is trying to work towards helping to change that narrative. And that's really what I hear you saying, and that's the role that you're taking in all this. But you know,
Mhm.
just to back up a little bit, man, I know you, so you grew up in Baltimore. So Baltimore, y'all accents kill me though, like the oohs and
Two,
ahs, like the
two
two
move
oohs
eyes
and
God,
ahs. Yeah, like
Baltimore.
it's very unique, it's very different. Yours isn't as thick as some that I've heard. um
Yeah, like that's crazy because I get that all the time. But man, I am true wholeheartedly like Baltimorean, man. Like I should have said in my introduction, this should have actually been the first thing I said, is like, or the second thing outside of all those things. You know what I'm saying? Like I opened a candy store in Baltimore. It's called Betty Lee's Candy Dish. And it's something that like
oh,
I'm
what,
true.
Betty Lee's candy dish?
Yep. So, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, let me put an ad in front of that, at Betty Lee's Candy Dish on Instagram. So please follow.
Yeah, check this
So
brother
we're
out.
a family owned and operated organization. Like we literally opened our doors a month ago. This project has been in the works for almost a year. Um, we're in one of the largest, or one of the oldest public markets in Baltimore. There's a lot of history behind Lexington Market, but um, yeah, we're in Lexington Market. It's 112 North Utah Street in Baltimore, Maryland. If you guys are ever in Baltimore, please come through. We have all types of candy, more you can like imagine. But yeah, that should have been the very first thing I said.
So yeah, because you know the title of this is the Candyman. So
Okay.
the Candyman, and we're gonna dive into that business aspect a little bit later. But the Candyman, you know, I'm sure must have grew up with a sweet tooth or something. So and as I'm backing up, you know, what's tell us more about your story growing up, man, in Baltimore. What was that like? Where did it all start? Um, and you know, let us dig in a little bit to any of your gutter to greatness moments. Like what was that gutter like for you, man, growing up? And the gutter, again, I always accentuate, it doesn't mean that it was like this terrible, horrible,
Mhm.
disgusting place, but
Mhm.
you know what, it could be where you were from, but it also could be the mentality of where you were at, you know. And so what did that look like for you growing up?
Man, growing up, I can honestly say I had a really, really, really good childhood, man. My parents, they both had me when they were 20, 21 years old. I was literally born 3 days after their wedding, if that tells you anything.
Oh, they was
Um,
getting it in.
yeah, okay. Come from a Catholic household, so I can almost
Sorry, mom and dad. They couldn't wait to get it in. They said,
right.
I was married now.
Okay. And that created a different dynamic because in my mind, like I can't imagine like having a child. I'm, of I'm 40 and I don't have any kids yet, but I can imagine at 20 years old having a child, and you're barely trying to make it. You're starting off in your career. You just finished school. Father just moved to Baltimore from Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, born and raised. He came to Baltimore, met my mom, and like the rest was history. They're actually still married till this day. It'll be 42 years in June.
Congratulations.
Um, but I had a really good childhood, man. I had a lower to middle class upbringing. Of course, there was so many like struggles and things that I've been through that created who I am today. Is just my hunger for wanting to do more, my energy for, just pouring into people. I get a lot of love from my family, a
Now, when
lot
you
of.
but back up, what did that struggle look like? So tell us about one of the struggles. Tell us about give us a struggle story.
So a struggle story. I remember one day I was coming home from school and my parents picked me up and I'm like, oh, usually my mom would pick me up, but they both picked me up that same day. They picked me up together. And I remember getting in the car and it was just like a different vibe. Typically, my pops would take us to like go get something to eat from a McDonald's or whatever. And it was just like really quiet. And I feel like my parents were upset at that moment. And like I remember as I was like, all right, I'm ready to go home. I'm ready to go home. By the time we pull up to home, it wasn't home, right? Like back in the day, they used to take your things and set all your belongings out on the street when like what I know now, we have some financial hardships. And again, my parents was in that learning space. They were very young. I was about 5 years old, and that struggle just that's just something that sits in my mind every day. And I remember like I had this one game. I can't even like it used to be like a Thundercats. Like it was some type of game, and I remember like that's being all torn apart, and I like they left my Lionel. Like I still
Who's
have
your
that.
favorite Thundercat? No, no,
Okay,
no, no. I love Thundercats. You know, I wish they would. I wish they would remake or do a Thundercats like reboot. That
like the live
like I'm a
version.
Thundercats fan. Like I'm being a
Yes.
nerd now,
Oh
but
my
I love Thundercats.
god.
I used to get home. I couldn't wait. I think it came on at 4 o'clock,
It
and I
did.
couldn't wait to get home. And I get my little snack, and I sit there, and I was so excited to see Thundercats and Transformers. Those were my
It did.
two. Like I think I cried when Optimus Prime died, but
Oh my goodness.
like
I'm crying, bro.
like these are real like things that you experience as a kid that I don't even know if kids like if things are built like that today. But okay, so you were saying you were playing the game with Thundercats.
Man, so like yeah, I was coming home like just having those pieces that were like still there. And like just that space. I can't really invoke the emotion of like there was plenty of things that happened afterwards. And like not only did it happen once, it happened again. Like I mean that's life. We all go through financial situations, and I wasn't old enough to like truly like really understand like cars getting repossessed. And like I also remember like as I was getting a little bit older, this was like right before I was getting ready to graduate high school. I remember um, my mom and my dad, they had my little brother. He was born in 2000. And I remember like my brother's a heart patient. So a lot of his beginnings of his life, probably about the first 6 to 8 months, was spent in a hospital, and my mom had to quit her job, and that was like a very difficult period because it was solely like relying on my dad, and we did what we had to do as a family. Their house got foreclosed on, and this is a period in when they legitimately were like making things happen. But then we had a milestone like for us being at my brother's bedside and being at that hospital every single day was not an option. Like for us, um, like love and being there for each other is every single thing. Like no matter what it is, no matter what we do, we're always there for each other.
Right.
So for me, even just thinking back about that space, it's kind of hard, right?
Right.
Because
And I think even just hearing what you're saying and connecting the dots, I hear you saying that even though you guys might have had severe financial troubles, displacement from home, cars, cars repossessed, whatever the challenges or tribulations that you went through, you guys were able to keep your family unit together. Your brother had extreme health issues,
mm,
and you put his needs first. Y'all put, as a family, the love was there, and that love and the bond of the Black family unit. You know,
mm,
and I think that's what's crucial here is that everybody has different stories, right? And everybody
mm,
has unique, and not every Black family has been able to stand the test of time or stay together or experience the love that you have. But even through the poverty, there was power in this Black struggle because you guys had the family unit, you had the love, you had a father and a mother who were able to, regardless of what they went through, they still put the love in the family first. You
mm,
know, but what did that, some of those struggles that you guys went through, how did that mold or shape um, you as who Don is today, the
mm,
good, the bad, and the ugly, right? And so, what did those struggles do to you? Because I know for me, and just giving you an example, like the poverty that I went through was extreme as well. And so, like, we were often taking bottles back to get toilet paper. We were standing for food or in line for food, at the welfare line or the cheese line or whatever you want to call it. We
mhm,
used to, try to make the food stamps last until the end of the month, and the covers get a little bit more bare. And there was always a way, and we always made it through and did the best that we could, but it was
mhm,
very extreme, right? And so for me, what it drove me to do is I never wanted to live like that. So it
mm,
made me hungry, right? It made me extremely hungry to and ambitious and driven, that like, and afraid. So afraid to ever go back and live like that. I was never complacent, and I always wanted to find a way to progress. Now,
mm,
sometimes that always wasn't the right way, right? And so I dibbled and dabbled in things that weren't the right way until I found the right path and stayed on it, and been on it
mhm.
for many years now. But I had to. That really is how it kind of shaped me. How did this experience and potentially traumatic experience that you went through, how did that shape you as the good, the bad, and ugly as who you are?
I feel like very similar. Even like living in like a car or a hotel temporarily was just a lot, right?
Mhm.
And like being in that cuffs of like right before like I graduated high school and going into the space of like learning myself as a young man, I kept telling myself like I'm gonna make it out of this. We're gonna make it out of this. I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do something. So when I went away to school, um, I feel like it created a monster, man. Like when I left Baltimore, I got engulfed in like just that college experience. And, although I know and I knew my family was going through things back home, like I had that duty of like, I never wanted to be in a space where we were living in a hotel again. I never want to be in a space of like not having, I never want to be in a space of like, parents borrowing, because that comes with other stigmatisms of people or family members feeling like they have this autonomy over you because
Definitely, yeah.
yeah, like almost a I'm doing this for you and I need to tell you what to do with your life. And like, that's just not, I kept telling myself, this is not going to be my life. This is not going to be our life. You know what I'm saying? Even till this day, like, I feel like there's this learning space and this learning curve. And it's so funny. And this is no knock to anyone, if anyone's watching this, like family or abroad, like, it's just, they be like, "Oh, remember I did this for your parents and da da da," and I'm like, "Wow." Like you really hold on to that as though it's a leverage or something instead of complimenting where they are now and the things that we're doing now versus it's always like a highlighting that negative versus fostering like something positive. So for me, again, cultivating a position of in my community or like in my family is like really important to me. And I not that, not going to say position is everything, but I'm trying my best to, get to that $1 million life where
Mhm.
like I can be a change agent in my community based off of like being a philanthropist. I can, ensure that my family has a good life. I can ensure those that are around of us like are comfortable or gaining access. Again, that goes to that connection piece. So man, like for me, the things that I'm doing legitimately in right life right now is like focusing on not the negative of my past, but how my past is creating a pathway to something completely different. I don't know what doors are open tomorrow, but I'm just, man, literally following the Lord's path.
Right.
I
And I
don't go
think
to church every
that's
day.
key. Yeah, yeah, no, that's key. And God is everything and everything to me. And I say that because I find as the more I follow God's plan, the better I do. And when I don't, I get hit over the head. Or like recently, I did something a little stupid that I know better than that I should have did, and it was just a purchase that I made. But all the signs were there not to make the purchase. God gave me all kinds of warnings, told me no, no, don't do it, stupid. And my impulsivity, because it was an item that I really wanted. Because also, part of this whole piece comes as I've started to, just acquire a little bit more,
Hmm.
and still not where I want to be. Like I want to be, like you said, at that millionaire status where I can be a philanthropist as well. Not anywhere close to that, right? But I will say that I'm comfortable now, and
Hmm.
and with that level of comfortable, there's some things that I'm able to acquire that I never thought I would be able to acquire. So this was an exciting purchase for me, and the signs were there not to do it, and I did it anyways, and I didn't listen. And when I didn't listen, guess what? It's caused me all kinds of problems, and it's caused me heartaches and pains right now. And God is trying to tell me something, that it's about the impulsivity and not listening. And when He's trying to tell me something, that I need to listen. And you know what's interesting? I've been praying about it. I'm trying to get the lesson that He wants me to learn,
Hmm.
and trying to figure it out, and work on my own issues with it. And as I've been praying and trying to connect to Him and showing Him that I'm getting it, it's unraveling to actually work out in an okay way, where it's still going to cost me additional funds. Like He's not done with the spanking. Like my butt's still a little red, but 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 at the end of the day, it's about following His plan. But
Hmm.
and just to go back for a second, because you said something like this created a monster, and when created a monster, somebody who was hungry and who was going after things. For me, it created a few monsters, right? So it
Hmm.
created a monster that was hungry. It created a monster that was doing things professionally and trying to reach levels and heights. And still, I'm hungry, right? I'm still
Hmm.
that monster. But then the other monster that it created was somebody who had these hurt and pain and emotional issues. And see, as a black male, I was taught that we didn't deal in emotions. And see, I
Hmm.
didn't have that father figure or those role models or any of those other pieces. And so, the streets was often my role model. And so, that became that I didn't know what to do with those emotions. And that turned into vices for me. Did any of that trauma turn into any vices or any issues for you? And if so, what did that look like?
It did, man. Like I had moments where um I'm saying this on camera.
Yeah, I talk about my stuff all the time, brother.
Well,
That's why
yeah.
people listen, because they want to hear about your stuff. I didn't
Um,
know Don did that. Don
man,
is crazy.
like I mean, again, I've experienced, like back in the day, at the young age, I
It was a
was
long
on
time
the
ago,
streets.
y'all. So
Yeah,
don't
like, long
hold this
time
against
ago,
them.
like
Right.
long, 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 long time ago. I experienced like just smoking and drinking alcohol and blah, just thinking I just thought I was grown and I was growing up fast, you know what I mean? And
Right.
like although I had my parents there, I would have never told them that, but out of fear of like, hey, I had a very disciplined home. My parents ensured that I stayed out of the streets. They ensured that I wasn't in any type of trouble. So for me, like doing that was like pushing an envelope. Like I had a very small core group. We were a small core group of friends growing up where We grew up like brother and sister. Like I'm talking about like my one of my close cousins lived right directly behind me. Like our best friend lived in the house right next to us. Like we would fight in the alleys, man. Like I remember having a fight and my mom breaking it up. And just those moments, I feel like, you know, what I mean, attributed to something. And like I remember I used to go to a neighboring school. I went to Chinquapin Middle School in Baltimore. And my zone school, which is closer to my house, was Winston Avenue. And I remember specifically, like one day I was walking home and I got jumped. And I've never, I've never experienced anything like that before. Mind you, like as much as I would run around the neighborhood and be a
Right.
terrorizer to the, like, you know what I mean, my peoples, like I never experienced anything like that. And that was my first moment where I feel like I was like, oh shit, like this is a moment. Because the first thing I never forget was my cousin said was, yo, where these niggas at?
Right.
Like, what we gonna do? What do you think is that? And I remember we had a whole retaliatory moment where we went back and beat the peoples up, and that just became a thing. And like I just know, like thinking back on it now, that wasn't me. That wasn't how, you know, I was
Right.
brought up. It
Right.
wasn't. It wasn't. I would have never told my parents that. If I would have told my parents that, man, I'd be I probably got knocked upside my head from my mom. And my dad has like the biggest heart of gold. My dad, like I just been through like a few things in life, and just my dad has been there
Right.
consistently, and my mom has been my rock. My mom is my rock in my life. Like even till this day, she retired her job to like, you know, manage and be my what I consider like executive assistant or like operating our stall every single day.
So
So, man, yeah, there's a lot of components that has like literally changed my life, man.
right. And so when I think about that and think about that, the some of the trauma and like my vices, mine wasn't really drugs or alcohol. Mine was always women. And so as
Right.
I've shared, and it's caused me all kinds of ups and downs, and I got some cool stories. But
Right.
you know, but at the same time, that's that. Even though that's what and where I was at one point in life, those
Mhm.
things caused me. It ended up costing me a lot. My vices. So there was things that I had to stop doing to stop limiting my potential, to get out of my own way and to work on healing so that I could start to reach and open doors to the next level. So what things did you have to stop doing that was limiting your potential so that you could open the doors, and what did that healing process look like for you?
Man, I feel like my vice. What was my vice? Like I'm not a huge drug or alcohol person either. But I can say some of my vices. I think I don't even know if this is a vice, but what
Not
I'm
everybody
learning,
has them.
yeah, like what I'm learning is I commit a lot of time to people, and I tie myself to people. And a lot of times, what I'm learning now, based off of like, you know, over the past 5 years in learning, you know, I've given a lot of space and love to people where I didn't necessarily require it back. And I was
Mm,
pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring and pouring into people, and I wasn't really pouring into myself. And there was like a shift in my life where um like my partner and I at the time that separated, and when I separated from my partner, it was just like a what's next, what do I do? I felt
right,
I was lost in translation, right? And I only attribute that because at that point in time, those people that I thought would have my back or be around
right,
wasn't necessarily around. And those that it was a small group, small handful of folks that was there in my corner. But I've learned that since I was younger, I was always the cool one, always the giving one, always giving my last. And that gave me a sense of fulfillment a sense of like happiness just to see someone else happy versus
Right.
versus seeing myself in that same position. It was hard for me to actually receive that back. But now I'm in this space of like, gimme, 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 gimme. If you're not giving as much as I'm giving, it's like that real surface level of like, this is just what it is, you know? So I had to
Right.
learn that. I had to learn it the hard way.
And it really feels like, your cup, you were emptying your cup and nobody was pouring back into it. And what does that say about you? And so what does that say, what was lacking for you, right? And that's where some of those connections, I think, and as Black men, a lot of times we don't have that conversation. We
Mm,
don't look at, what's lacking for us, what are we missing, um what feelings did we go through that's creating us, what hurt did Don go through, or what feelings or what trauma was created for him that he felt like in order to be accepted, he needed to give without somebody pouring back into him. And then, working through and trying to figure out what that is. And as I'm getting older and experiencing, just this transformation and these transitions in my thought processes and the way that I look at things and deal with things, a lot of it is trying to work on and identify and then try to figure out, what do I need to heal in certain areas so that I don't repeat these certain cycles. So
mm,
I don't repeat that impulsive if there's something that I want and just doing it regardless of the consequences, right? So,
mhm,
like I'm trying to figure out what makes me do that and why do I do it and how do I change that so that I can look at things differently and with an elevated and a mature mindset. And see, that's what this show is all about, Don. See, like when we're moving from the gutter to greatness, it's my hope is, and I always try to break this down to people, is that my hope is that there's people who are listening, who are at different phases of life, and that they start to think about, maybe I need to transition and think about things differently. Yeah, I might be going through these struggles. I might have had these things happen to me, but there's other people who have had them too. And here's how they trying to transition to deal with it. Maybe I can learn something and I don't have to go through the struggles as long or as hard as somebody else did because I'm learning something. And I'm
right,
willing to transition out of my gutter to move into my greatness so that my life can be as successful as I want it to be without the infringements of the hard lessons at times. And
exactly.
that's really why we're here and why we're talking and and just thinking about this. So what's the most vulnerable times for Don? Like when are you most vulnerable, brother? What does that look like? I know it's hard to think about that because as Black men, we're not supposed to show that we're vulnerable for
Mhm,
many reasons, because it can show weakness and weakness in often in our places of of growth, um, are a way to to hurt your survival methods, right? And
mhm,
so that's why we stay away from weakness because we have to survive, and we've been taught that weakness goes against the mentality that we've been brought up on. Too often we've been brought up on a mentality of physical is like assertiveness versus mental weakness. And and I'm not to get off on a tangent, but what's interesting to me as so I just with one of my with some of my fraternity brothers, there's this Omega chat group or on Facebook or whatever that you have to be privileged and part of the right side of 1911 to be a part of, right? So
I don't need no
so
parts of
so
that.
so, so this one brother he put on there, and I'm not like putting nobody's names out there or nothing like that, right?
Mhm,
But this brother put out there, and just the mentality of, and this is all coming back to like the conversation of like physical toughness, but often we are very mentally weak, and we look at our everything is our manhood is about what who we are physically, and
mhm,
so like
mhm,
brother said something like, okay, I'm going to the districts or to the grand conclave, which that is like the major conference, or the districts is, we're in the second district here, which is in New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, all those states, right?
mhm,
So he said something like, okay, and he was made back in the 80s, and he said, I'm bringing the wood with me, and we can swing bare ass, and whoever don't like it, let's go. Like this is what we do, and like oh, you want to y'all internet bros, like let me show y'all what it's all about. Or like I'm bringing it, and so my response to that in the dialogue or the conversation was as brothers like that's and I get it. I know there's things, it is what it is. We all done probably been through some stuff in our processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
um but at the end of the day, what was crazy to me is that's a slave mentality to me. And
Yes.
so you're bringing and perpetuating a culture and the wrong culture of manhood, because manhood to me is about standing on your principles, your values, and characteristics, not
Facts.
how much or how many strokes or how many how much wood you could take or how physical you are. And
Mm-hmm.
and manhood is always standing up for yourself, I believe. And
Exactly.
manhood is not giving anybody the ability to you is being respected, right? But
Mm-hmm.
why are we always connected to that? And why do we always connect it to this physical nature versus the mental toughness that it takes to elevate your mindsets? And so how do we get
Mm-hmm.
people to listen and to learn from this?
I feel like it's so interesting that you bring up that point because you have a brother that was made in the '80s, right? And I feel like he
And
was
he's damn
probably
near probably 50 something. Like come on,
he's
I'm a
a
movie. Like it's
he's
crazy.
what they call it, the baby boomers,
Right.
or like in his age, like generation. I think it might be Generation Y, uh, or is it X? I can't think of the generations these
Yeah,
days.
I think I might be Generation X too.
It
So
is Generation X, right? So it's like, just his mindset is like completely different from like what I consider Generation X, a millennial. I'm a millennial. And yeah, we have those bros who might think the same way, but I think that, like you said, like that's not the test of manhood. That's like kind of barbaric to me. Like, why do we have to resort to what we may have possibly been through teachings, whatever those teachings are? You know what I'm saying? I don't have to prove that to you. And if anybody feel like, they got to prove themselves on that, they got to do some soul searching, man. Like they got to really like, I feel like that's a large part of insecurity where you got to perpetuate what you did years ago versus where you are now. Like, tell me where you are now. Like, let's combat on, like, you know what I mean? Like some things that matter. I like me having my paddle in my car, or in my instance, me having my cane in the back of my car. I'm not going to tell them, yo, listen, do your thing, young bro. I had my story. I did my time. You know what I mean? Even though it's a lifetime commitment, I have nothing to prove to nobody. I'm not
Right.
going.
And too many brothers, I think, and just this is not all, and this is only a microcosm of society, right? The Black Greek organizations, which
Mm-hmm.
are there's also so many benefits, and there's also so many beautiful things that come along with it.
Facts. Facts.
And so much brotherhood and camaraderie. But what really bothers me when there's brothers who get so stuck in the past, and it becomes their identity. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's some brothers that their only identity is their organization. And so they become known as the Kappa or the Q, or the Alpha or the Sigma. They don't get known as the person, right?
Mm.
Who also is that and identifies with that. And to me, that's the corny part. And that's
Facts.
when it overtakes you and it becomes, it's always going to be a part of you. It is a lifetime commitment,
Mm-hmm.
but it when it overtakes you, when there's some brothers that are 50, but they, every time a line comes in of sorors or whoever, they're the ones there chanting and doing whatever they do. And I understand having fun, I understand being out, I understand customs and cultures. But when you're 50 something and you're still acting as if you're 22, I think you're stuck or frozen in a place
Yeah.
where what does that say about your mentality or your identity? And then when there's so many of our brothers that believe that's exactly what you're supposed to be doing, that's a
Mm-hmm.
problem to me. and,
Yeah.
and I don't know how necessarily we change that, except for keep trying to educate and show people differences, but it transfers to the larger levels of society. So how do we, and that's why we're here, because we want people to transfer their mindsets, whether it's Black Greek organizations, whether it's us as individual, and specifically as Black men. How do we
Hmm.
change our thought process? So, was there a person or was there a point in time in your life that helped you transition and move from your gutter to greatness? And what did that person or process or time look like?
And like just to go back a little bit, I don't want anybody to think we bashing them on
No, no, no.
what they
Hey,
do. Because
no. Hey, I
we're
love
not
a
bashing.
crucified to the day I die, and and
Okay,
and
five. Like
there's no bashing, but
yeah,
I'm also real, and I speak
that's
real,
real.
and I love my brothers, I love my org, but I also what I don't love is when brothers have a mentality that isn't helping us achieve or grow as
Evolve.
black
Yeah, I agree.
evolve as black men. You
I
know what?
agree.
And that's a conversation where I'm not. I'll never divulge anything that is supposed to be private or to us. But what I am saying is this is a mentality that is a larger problem in society that I wish
Hmm.
there was a way that more brothers would be willing to change.
I agree. I agree 100%. I feel like always why I segue that is because I feel like those brothers may still be on their learning journey. Unfortunately, he might be in his 50s, close to 60, and he's still trying to figure that out. You know what I'm saying? But I also believe, like, we go through our journeys in time, um, and we learn as we go. So, whatever his journey is, whatever his destination is, like, I'm praying that they figure that out, so they can be a change agent in their own right. But just me speaking for myself, like that invested time in like my organization or like supporting different events is the like whatever time I have like is the best that I can do right now. Is just what it is. But
But
yeah,
what was that person or place or moment that helped you transition from your gutter to greatness?
so the person, yeah, to go back, that was a question I was gonna ask. What was the
Right.
question again? But the person that I legitimately believe changed my mindset was my grandmother.
Why is that?
Like the candy store is named after her. Man, like my grandmother, like although I have like the best parents in the world, but I feel like she kind of been the glue to hold the family together.
Right.
And when I went away to school, like I mean, we packed up a van. She rode with us in the van. She's always been like always been my biggest cheerleader. I still have like a written card that she wrote to me for graduation. Um,
What
like
did she do that caused you to change your mindset though?
um, man, like because of some of the things that were going on in our life, I've honestly never like really shared. I think that's why it's so hard for me to like to open up about that. Is like she made sure that I stay focused, and she made sure that no matter what was going on at home, like oh man, like just private conversations that we had. Like I'm not meaning to be so vague. It's just that I'm
No,
like really trying
no, I
to.
get it. I get it, but I think what I hear you saying is his grandma was the one who never gave up on you,
Hmm.
and you didn't want to let her down, and your relationship was so important to you
Hmm.
that you, even though you had a great relationship with your parents, your relationship was so important to you with your grandmother, and she was that meaningful to you that
Hmm.
you were going to have to transition and change potentially some of the way that you were doing or looking at things to move towards being the man that you were meant to be, and she was an integral part. Is that what I hear you saying?
Man, you put it like in words perfectly. I couldn't have said it a better way. I just when you have someone that pours into your life like my grandmother has. I feel like if it's a duty or if it's a calling or it's just something that she had to do. I mean, we always, humans only are blessed to have some individuals that love you as much as like a parent or a grandparent. And like you said that perfectly, man. Like it was just a feeling of like not wanting to let her down because I knew she believed in me so much. Um, and even till this day, like, you know what I mean, kind of get emotional about it because I'm thinking about like where I am now and just like, starting this candy store and just how good things are going right now. It's I can just hear her or just
I'm,
like that.
I'm sure she's proud of you. Now, why? How did y'all come out of all things? How did y'all come to a candy store? Like, why a candy store, and what's the importance and significance of it?
So it sounds funny because I feel like every black household had that grandparent and they had
Yeah, that candy dish with the red strawberry things, the butterscotches, and the peppermints,
yeah,
and
remember them holiday candies and it comes
the
in like
holiday.
assorted like
Yeah, okay.
man, my wow, man, nostalgia. Like she would have like these candy dishes. My grandmother was known for having candy dishes for Christmas, like Easter, like every holiday. Like she would have like these baskets. And I remember every time I go in, she was like, don't you put your hands in that candy dish.
Right.
and, and we would only be able to get something if, you know, we would do something for her, or like if we did something good, she was like, "Oh, I heard you got a good report today. Go and get some of that candy." But the older we got, like as I was getting older, in a lot of part of years, like I would go in the house and I was still, she still had these candy dishes, man. Like
Uh-huh.
still had these candy dishes. I'm pushing Gary turned 30, and she still had these candy dishes. And I remember coming in one day and I was like going to get a piece of the candy and it was it was stuck. And I'm like,
That candy, that
I'm
piece
like,
was in there for about 20 years.
yeah, I said, Grant, is this what is this the candy from 20 years ago? Is this? She was like, boy, that candy's still good. You better go ahead. So like that still was her thing. Like no matter how old she got, she had like those candy dishes. And like I attribute that to her because that was her thing. You know what I'm saying? So when I had the opportunity and like, some of the money that I had saved up and some of the money that I want to reinvest, and this opportunity came up, I didn't ask anyone. I legitimately said, "This is what I'm gonna do." Like,
Mhm.
and then when I put the things in motion, start interviewing, creating a business platform, I didn't say anything to my mom or my family until everything was like legitimately set in stone, like prepared to go. Like, and I said, hey, I wanted to let you know. And that would came off as a huge surprise for my mom. And like, she cried, like, she was excited, you know what I'm saying? So for me, and this goes back to breaking those barriers of where I come from and like walking in those steps of greatness, um, for me, this is another level of, opportunity, another level of greatness, another level of like
Mhm.
something different that I'm doing in life, something that I'm focusing on, something that I cherish, something that I love. And the possibilities are limitless, right? Like now it's just a matter of like putting my mind to it, segueing of like also doing what I love in this seat that I'm sitting in right now, and fostering like, community, fostering potential jobs for, student interns. Like, these are the things that I'm thinking about
Right.
intangibly is like life goes on every day. So again, creating those opportunities for people that look like myself, creating those opportunities families never had. So I just see this as like a huge opportunity, man, with the opening of Betty Lee's Candy Dish. Um, and still being able to continue to sit in my seat and have this conversation with you and still work, simultaneously.
Right now, if you were going to like drop some gems on people and say if there was three things that people needed to do in order to move from their gutter to greatness, what would be your three like like absolutely for you to make a move to transition from where you were? So okay, let's say I don't have a grandma that that is that I have that type of connection to, that I need to do this because I owe it to my grandma and I can't let her down. I don't have that. I don't have these people in my life, and I done been through some stuff. But if there were, but you know what? If I listen to these three things that Don says, the Candyman can, if the Candy Man could do it, I could do it too. What might those things be, and how would you describe them?
Um, First and foremost, I would say mindset. Um, I believe in cultivating like a positive and growth oriented mindset to where as though, you know, it involves like I guess adopting good habits or beliefs that will continue forward in a positive journey in your life, and facing setbacks head on. Those setbacks aren't necessarily setbacks; they're lessons to help us grow. So yeah, mindset. Um, Second, I would say habit. Developing habits that are instances of like gratitude and abundance, like setting examples. So again, like being consistent in like your habits with those around you, like and lastly, I guess the third would be connection. um, Surrounding yourself with those folks that are supportive to you, around individuals who want to uplift you, motivate you, and building a network of people that you will continue to grow with, right? Um, like bringing yourself around someone that is going to mentor you, and be a role model that's going to encourage you, and create different opportunities of collaboration, and I would think those would be my three. So yeah, mindset, habit, and connections, and continue to do that. And again, I'm a thank you for this one because this is for me. Like when I met Dr. Paul Miller in person, man, like that was an amazing, connection. And we spoke about like, the education and us both being black men in education. Um, that's what's important to me. And like this is a prime example of this, of us leading to this conversation. So again, thank you for that.
Oh, thank you for coming on today, man. It's really appreciated. And as we always kind of close out with a mindfulness minute, this brother said uh, that's about the mindset, and it's about connections, about the habits that you form, and those are all the things that you kind of need to make your changes and transitions. And these are the things that we talk about on here from week to week, and trying to drop gems on our people. But all the people that we bring on and that have developed into successful, it usually is because they've started new habits. Their new habits have helped to change their mindset, and then they put the right people around them to network and to build themselves up, to pour back into their cups as they continue to give out. But they got to want to do this and do things differently. They got to want to change. You got to want to change. You can't do this on your own if your mindset isn't strong, if you're not convicted, if you don't believe that you can do it. But you first got to be willing to change your habits, potentially change the people, and then shift your mindset into the positivity and things that need to happen. So as you do that, and as you start to transition, there will be obstacles. You got to embrace those challenges as they come to you, but your greatness is going to come from your effort. You know what? And then you got to let others inspire you. You got to continue to just anticipate that there's going to be criticism and all these other things that are going to happen to you, but you got this. And so,
Yes.
as you continue to move forward on your journeys, I continue to urge you to grow and continue to be greater later. And this has been another episode from the Gutter to Greatness. I just appreciate everybody for listening. Until next time, y'all, we're going to bring y'all some more greatness.